Ah, skylights. Aren't they wonderful? They bring in the sun, they make a dark trailer nice and bright and seem more airy and even roomier. They're just wonderful. Over in my Coachman, I absolutely love the skylight above the shower. It gives me extra headroom, plus again it brings in the light. But like somebody once told me a long time ago when I was doing home improvements, a skylight is just a hole in the roof. And unfortunately, a lot of times you're gonna have to deal with leaks with them. So I've got a few things to help you on this one. So let's hop to it. If you get a leak in your skylight, there's only basically 3 places. I shouldn't even say a leak. If you get dripping water off of a skylight, there's only 3 places it's going to come from. One is going to come from where it attaches to the roof, down along the edges here. 2, it's going to come from the skylight itself. Might be a hole or a crack in there. And the third one, which is the most difficult, is a tear or somewhere that is not near the skylight, but it's traveling down to the skylight and then dripping out, you know, in the edges or usually down along the bottom if it's an A-frame like this one. So each one of these has to be addressed. If you don't address it, you're going to have problems that are going to create a lot more problems pretty quickly. So if you find that you have a leak, the first thing you got to do is find out where it's coming from, and then you have to take care of it. So let's take a look on the outside first. Now again, I'm going to start off with these skylights that are on my A-frame, and the first place everybody looks for, and which you should, is this right here, this bead of caulking right here. All right, so it has to seal the edge, but it also has to wrap over the top of the edge. If you put it on correctly, it kind of wraps over the top here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but basically what it does is it keeps the water from getting down into any crack that could be between the plastic. The plastic and the fiberglass are going to have different expansion rates, slightly different, and that little gap right there can open up, and you would be surprised on how much water you can get in there from that, you know, on a hot day versus a cold day. So seal the edges, seal them all the way up here, and make sure you wrap it over here. And you can see here, you can probably tell I've put on at least 2 layers on here, maybe even 3 on some places, to make sure that I've got a good seal. So that's the first thing you got to do, is make sure that you got your edges sealed. The second thing you got to look for are cracks along edges and the top of the skylight itself. These edges here, particularly down in the corners on a lot of these trailers, are prone to cracking because, again, these flex at a different rate than the fiberglass does and can cause cracks. And plus they get old, you know, being in the UV and everything, and cause cracks there. So that's the next thing you look for, is that. If neither of those are looking like they're on your skylight, and you got to look really close because it can just take a pinhole, then you got to start looking up on the roof and seeing again if you've got a tear, a hole, or something where the water, it could be coming from the roof down or something, or could even, on my case, on one, it could be coming from that fantastic vent and just from the fan unit and just running down. Luckily it didn't on mine, but so now if you determine where the holes are, then you got to repair them. We're going to go back and I'm going to show you some examples of what I was talking about, some of the damages, but let's talk for a second about how to fix them. And of course, the first thing everybody thinks of and runs to is the go-to. Silicone. Yes, silicone. No, don't use the silicone. Will it work? Yes, it's going to work, but it's not going to last. Silicone is not going to stick to the plastic. It'll very quickly yellow, and you can, after just a short time, you can pull it off with your fingers. It does not hold on tight. There's only 3 things that I use to fix damage to skylights. And the first thing, and again, it also depends on what type of damage and how permanent I want the repairs. I consider any skylight with any type of damage to it, I consider it, anything I do to it, actually a temporary repair. If it's damaged, it's going to have to get replaced eventually. So the first thing that comes in everybody's mind, of course, is our good old friend here, and this is Eternabond tape. And I actually have, you know, some 2 different sizes, and yes, I love Eternabond tape. You put this stuff down and it is going to stick and seal. The only problem with it is if it's a temporary fix and you want to replace those skylights, when it comes time to replace it, you are going to be in for all sorts of mess to get them off of there. So I actually recommend this if you're putting in new skylights and you want to make sure you're not going to have any future problems with it. You can put a nice layer of Eternabond on there. And again, like I'm sure everybody knows, you can buy this on Amazon. That's where I always get mine. I always keep some. I have some with me whenever I travel, just to be on the safe side, because, you know, nothing worse than a leaking skylight. It's not my first choice for the reasons I just explained. So, and it doesn't work on everything. For example, if I've got a crack in the middle of my skylight and I slap this on top of it, well, now I've got a piece of opaque material right over the top of my skylight, and that skylight is either going to look like heck, or I'm really going to have to just go and replace it because I can't stand stuff like that. So another thing that I use is my I can't even see it. This is Sikaflex. It's in the tube backwards. Hang on, let me change that. Now, Sikaflex makes a whole series of products that you can use. Sikaflex 221 is one of the best. It's very flexible. It's not like standard silicone. It's compatible. It will stick. You put it on and it's going to do a pretty good job. I've had it on a couple of cracks for probably 2 years now, and it's been holding up very well for me. And again, there's a few sources. You can get Amazon. I think Camping World carries it, so you can use that. Again, it's got the same issue as the Eternabond tape, is that once you put it on, it's going to blacken out anything that you put it on. So I use this stuff, and I use the Eternabond for basically flange issues. And I don't use it on the top of the skylight. And what I do use for that is this stuff here, and you probably see this, it's all over the place. It's Gorilla Tape. This is 1.5 inch Gorilla Tape. This stuff works incredibly well for patching cracks and holes in your skylight. In fact, I've got a skylight that I've had it on for a while. I'm going to show it to you here in a minute so you can see how well this stuff is held up. Now, the other thing you have to consider too, and there's something I haven't shown you, because on this trailer that I'm in now, these are at 45-degree angles. They don't sit flat. But on my other trailer, they sit flat. So if you've got a leak around there, you're not going to necessarily want to use Sikaflex. You're either going to want to use Eternabond, or you're going to want to use self-leveling sealant that goes on. You cannot use that on this, because when you put the roof up, it's going to just run off the edges. And I don't even think I read somewhere where it's not compatible with all plastics, where so you gotta kind of be careful where you do use it. Now, this is the large back skylight that I have on my A-frame, and like everybody, I've got cracks right here. And in this case, what I did was I put a layer of Sikaflex on them and smooth them out. You can see on the top there, I didn't necessarily smooth them out 100%, but I put them down there and it's filled the cracks, and guess what? They don't leak anymore. So I was very happy about that. You can probably notice here too, if you look right here, I've got a bead of Sikaflex run down here because I had all sorts of multiple cracks coming from the base going on up, and every time it would rain very hard, it wouldn't happen on a light rain, but if you have one of those gully washers coming down here, these would start to weep and start to leak through. So I've gone around and I've sealed the edges with that, and this is not part of what you see out of the window. You don't see it out here, so it doesn't, get into the way of what you're trying to see. Now, this is one of my front bubble skylights, And again, you can see I've put the Sikaflex down in here. I have tried other things on here. You know, years ago I tried silicone, found out it did not work. Excuse me, I tried epoxy. That did not work at all. It peeled up within a month, I think it was. Where Sikaflex, if you put on a nice thick layer of it, you let it dry, put on a couple layers if you have to, then it works fine. Again, I did the same thing on here. On some of these edges, I've run the Sikaflex down up along the edges too. Now this particular skylight is going to get replaced, so this is a temporary fix to get me through the season. I just want to get this thing out on the road so I can actually use it. I've been working on it and haven't even had it out camping yet. So I'm going to show you some damage that was on the inside of this one. This is on the inside at the bottom corner, and you can see these cracks were forming right here, and water was weeping through there. But if I go up along here, I hope this shows up. If you go up and look down in here, you're going to see I've got some major cracks coming down along here. Okay, these are all cracks in here, and again, when it rained really hard, this was letting water in. Now the best way to do that is with Gorilla Tape. You probably can't see it, you can probably barely notice it from the inside, but now I guess you can see it. I've got 3 strips of Gorilla Tape that are covering these, and clean off the tape really, or clean off the surface really good, and use Gorilla Tape. Down along the edges, you can see where I've squeegeed some of that Sikaflex in along the bottom flange to help seal it up there. It's not the prettiest. Again, I consider this a temporary fix until I buy the new Skylight. I've already replaced the other Skylight, and that one's working fine. Of course, it's brand new. All right, folks, I'm on top of my other trailer. This is a 233 RBS, and you can see I've got my flagstaff next to it. And I will tell you, it is hot up here. In the middle of September, you think it would cool down a little bit, but not so much. The reason I came up here is I wanted to show you this. Obviously, this Skylight needs to be replaced, and I'm going to do it, but the reason I haven't done it is because it's kind of been an experiment. First off, you can see that the self-leveling sealer has been reapplied on here over the past couple of years. It's the point now where if I did it again, I just have to remove that because it's getting a little bit thick on there. But this is all frosted from the UV on it for years. This is a 2014, so it's 2022 right now, so it's had a few years to change colors and frost out. But the reason I really wanted to show you this is because a few years ago, like 3 years ago, we had a major hailstorm in the area, did a lot of serious damage, and I had a couple of holes punched in through my skylights. So you can see here I've got some Gorilla Tape I put on there, and I've been letting this go because I wanted to see how long it was going to last, and it has been going strong ever since I put it on. You can see it's still stuck to it, and this is a big hole right here. It's like this large. It was a big hailstorm and it really did damage, but if I go in here, there are no leaks to it and it's holding tight. So if people ask you, will Gorilla Tape work? I think this pretty much explains that it does. Here's another one. It's from here to here across, and this stuff is really really dependable. You put it on there, again, you clean it up really good, you press it down into it, and I haven't had to do anything about it. I'll probably go ahead next year and replace it. I think leaving it here this long has proven that it does work. You know, my thanks to the Gorilla Company for their products. What a great job. And I'll just have to order a Skylight and replace it when I replace the other Skylight on my other one. So that about wraps it up for this episode. Just a short one explaining a little bit on something that everybody's probably going to have to face one time or another. Of course, on the A-frames, a little bit, because of the construction, a little bit more common, but you can get skylight leaks on any trailer, around the base, holes, cracks, whatever. It's all the same material, so we got to keep an eye on it. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention too is on this trailer, these are glued into place. There are no screws on it. Where on this trailer, the Coachman, there are actually screws that hold it down. So be aware of what type of construction your trailer has when you go to repair it. Obviously, screws are more holes in the roof. Take a little extra care to get those sealed up properly too. If you have any questions or have any comments, feel free to ask. Love to answer the questions. I always get good questions from you guys. Please like, and I'd love to have you subscribe. Until next video, have a great day and keep camping.